And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say it
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by his teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Hey, Joe DeLeone, Sean Anderson. We're back live after my short vacation. Actually, I wasn't short. I guess it was on the longer side, 6 days. First live show back. Might have a couple more pauses for when Sean takes his break. But today we are going to be discussing Terry McLaurin's contract situation, as there is now a ballpark on what he is looking for. We're going to talk about a surprising rumor of a player that Tom Brady did not want on the Raiders. And then we were, of course, going to continue on with division win totals going for the NFC East. Sean, before we move on, can you share with our listeners a word from BetOnline?
Just don't look at me, man.
Why?
I'll happily share the word from the sponsors.
Why can't I look at you?
I can't. I need like 90 seconds personal time just for this nice read, and then we can get back to the show.
Why? Because of what I did.
You are not an actual human being. So I need to handle the sponsor.
I would argue what I was doing before the show is one of the most human things that one could do.
I'm not going to get into this.
Okay, go ahead. Do the
BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season is in full swing. We're in the home stretch for NBA. We know the NHL is wrapped up. Hope you won some money on that. We got UFC all over the place. It's baseball season. You can bet on golf. They got a BetOnline casino. Joe's ripping ass all pre-show, like 10 minutes, making it a toxic space. Unbelievable. The stenches that he was ripping out of his body before the show and before this read. In between games, head over to the BetOnline casino. This is why I love casinos, Joe.
Why is that?
They're pumping in fresh
oxygen
oxygen all the time. So
me, who's pumping in
just
fresh ass.
Just you walk
shit.
into the casino, it feels like that's where you're supposed to be because it's your first clean air that you've had in a while. I need to get to a casino. All the top Vegas style games at BetOnline, including poker and their live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here.
Are you good?
Could BetOnline send us like an air purifier? Could they do that? Could that be a sponsor?
I don't think an air purifier would do anything for.
How about a
farts?
full body detox for Joe, just to flush the entire system?
That I probably need, because it was just a week of drinking beer, and then I come back and I went right back to eating ground beef and eggs.
How was your week of drinking beer? It's nice to have our nice Irish flour back on the home soil.
Don't call me an Irish flour. What? It was good. It was nice to get away, to go to a completely different country. It was expensive, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you. When you go on a trip, it's like, it kind of sucks by the end of it when you're just thinking about, like, man, I spent way too much money over the course of this.
My thought is normally it sucks that I'm going to have to go spend money back in America instead of spending more here. You said it was a completely different country, Ireland?
Okay, I made a pre-show comment to you that
I'm just wondering.
It didn't feel like I left. A lot of it felt like I was in a part of the U.S. Like it felt like I was in the Midwest, except for the coastal parts, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't feel completely that different. It was a beautiful country. Prices were about the same as what they were in the U.S. and what you would pay. But I enjoyed the trip. I just made the comment to you that parts of it kind of reminded me of Ohio. Felt like I was driving through Ohio.
That's just something that can't happen about a vacation. But here's one thing.
Have you been to Ireland before?
No, I'm going for the first time this summer. This is what I'll say. I don't know exactly what the expectation is supposed to be for dudes in their 20s to be traveling, because I have caught so much shit in my life for not soaking up the culture or not going to the churches and the museums and doing everything I need to do. I don't care about
that stuff. I'd rather just sit and drink and then go to sleep. That's all I need to do.
I check a lot of those boxes when I travel. I try to. But the main priority is get me out of the zone. Get me out of the whatever rut I've been in the States. Let me go drink outside in a chair. It's different drinking outside in different countries.
Yeah.
It's better.
Yeah.
We have not done that right in America. There's drank outside this past Friday, about as good as it could be in the heart of New York City. That's about as close as we can get. And that's like one street in one city in the whole populace. And I'm sure California has some areas, but good luck.
None. No.
Good luck.
California's terrible for that. There's no. New York's the closest you're going to get to anything that circumstantially, but like I agree with you on that. I'm not gonna, if I'm on vacation, I'm not gonna force myself to go see things I don't give a shit about. Like I just don't. I'd rather just be out of the U.S. and away or just in general out of New Jersey, out of the area, and not think for an extended period of time and then return back to the workflow. That's the point.
Here's the problem.
Okay.
These old heads that used to traveled the world, they never had the access that we had and the ability to see the absolutely comical amount of things that you would have to see in every country. You know what they had? Brochures, pamphlets, word of mouth, and travel agents.
Right.
And they're getting mad. They get mad. I've had people get mad at me for my trips and how I've operated in them. I'm doing exactly what I want to do when I'm not here and on vacation. These people,
it's not a field trip.
They're doing field trips and they like the field trips. They don't like that maybe if I'm left to my own devices,
sure,
I want to have 3 massive beers watching a clock every hour on the hour, sitting in a nice restaurant.
All right, well, we're not here to recap vacations completely. We're here to actually talk some football. We know that's what you are here for. We're going to start off by jumping into our next win totals segment. We did the AFC East last show. Go check that out if you missed it. Today, we will decide and help figure out who will be the best team in the NFC East in 2025. Now, I think that this is a pretty solvable question because we know who the best team is. It's the team that just won the Super Bowl, the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to get to them last. We're going to start with the New York Giants. 5.5 wins on BetOnline for 2025. I know you've got an opinion on this, one that's going to upset me. Where do you stand?
This shouldn't upset you for me saying that they're going to have under 5.5 wins this year. It shouldn't upset you because you do have a hard schedule, and the NFC East isn't the NFC East of the last decade. As of last year, this whole division has changed because the Commanders took a huge step up, and now the Giants are battling at the doormat again with a different team, and they can't just be locking and sitting in at 3. Additionally, you got the AFC West, which is 4 losses automatic. Maybe you beat the Raiders. Maybe.
We could beat the Raiders. The Giants could beat the Raiders.
So you get 1 win out of that outside of division. Do you win 1 game in division this year? Do you beat the Cowboys once? Because that's huge because the Giants are a fun team to dumb luck themselves into wins that they don't need. So I'm basically putting them at 3 stupid, like they could beat the Bears. They shouldn't beat the Bears. But they could, and that could be one of their dumb luck wins. Do you get 1 win in the NFC East? If so, you could get to that 6 wins. If not, you're definitely under.
Okay, here's my thing. Yes, they have a very difficult schedule. They have one of the hardest schedules in the NFL. I think by most metrics, they actually have the hardest schedule for 2025. I've said this repeatedly. 5.5 wins, for them to win 6 football games is too low of a number for me to take the under. It has nothing to do, absolutely nothing, zero to do with me having some sort of a belief that the Giants are going to be competent and good and, able to go out there and surprise teams. They do this every year. They did it last year. The one year where they were awful, like they were truly awful, to the point that Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito were out there starting, and they not only gave up on Daniel Jones way too late into the process, by the way, they cut his ass in the middle of the season. They still managed to knock themselves out of range of drafting a starting quarterback. The only available
they drafted
starting
one.
They pushed themselves out of range of getting Cam Ward, and that was one thing that incredibly upset me because they won a football game that they didn't need to. I just know this damn franchise that this upcoming year, when there's actually like 3-4 good options, like decent options to draft, they're going to do just enough to win 7 football games because that defense, that defense is nasty.
That's
the
a
defense
good point.
is good.
Yes,
They can swipe a couple really low-scoring games. I think that bringing in Russell Wilson, he's not as bad of a starter as I think everybody thinks that he is. He's just like a hair under below.
Why is he wearing full pads in OTAs? Why is he wearing full football pants?
Because he's a nut. He is just a hair below average enough to steal a game here or there. 7 wins is totally possible for this team, and it is not. To be very clear, I'm not saying that this Giants team is good enough that I'm scared of them, that they're going to surprise people. It is just a misdirected franchise that is on its last legs, that is trying to stay afloat. So Brian Daboll is going to do everything possible for them to steal games against, maybe they steal one against the Commanders. They're probably not going to steal one against the Cowboys because they never do. Maybe they end up swiping, you just mentioned there, the Bears could be a really random game, or maybe they surprise the Minnesota Vikings. It's going to be a tough battle.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about how they're picking 8th in the 2026 NFL draft away from all the quarterbacks, I wouldn't be shocked.
Odds are better that they botched themselves out of a good draft pick, because history would say that's more trending for them. Instead of going game by game, I feel like you guys make that big, frustrating late season push to get yourselves over and out of a good draft pick. Let's just look at December. I think it's the easiest last 5 games here. If these teams don't have their starting quarterbacks, which by now I think that's the only way the Giants get wins in this gauntlet. If these 5 teams don't have starting quarterbacks, do they win? Giants, Patriots. Do they beat the Patriots without Drake May?
Possible. Oh, without Drake May?
Drake May. Okay.
Yes. Even with Drake May, I think it's possible that they beat the Patriots.
Commanders. So they beat the Commanders without
that
Jay
could
Daniels.
be a random game that they steal.
Vikings.
Again, JJ McCarthy could be, trying to figure himself out. That could be a spot where they steal one.
Raiders.
They're going to beat the Raiders.
You think they beat the Raiders with Geno, regardless?
I'm not afraid of the Raiders. I think the Raiders are going to be ass this year.
Well, I saw someone Charles McDonald put Geno Smith at his top 10 quarterbacks for this upcoming year.
And
he had Jaden Daniels off of his top 10.
Okay, that's ridiculous.
You can do one or the other. You could be Mr. Pro Geno, but you can't also be not Jaden Daniels in the top 10 quarterbacks.
Yeah, Geno shouldn't be top. Okay, get back.
Last one, Cowboys.
Which
to
is
end
possible
the season.
that Dak could be out and unavailable.
The New York Giants 5.5 line is going to come down to this final game between what I would expect to be a 4-12 Cowboys team and a 5-11 Giants team.
Well, okay, so I don't think it has anything to do with that pocket. I think that the pocket where they end up stealing the games that nobody thought that they could win is like the middle of October, early November, going up against like the Broncos, the 49ers, the Bears.
I'm lower on the 49ers. Like, I'm not going to. Yeah,
I'm not shot. Yeah. I don't think it's, again, I don't think it's not a good team. It's not a good team. I'm just trying to point out the fact that team with a really talented defense that is on its likely last leg of its coach, they're going to try and do whatever they can to stay alive. Let's move on to next team, Dallas Cowboys, 7.5 wins, over under.
Under. I am losing faith on the Cowboys quickly. Even with the George Pickens ad, that's good. But even when you talk to the delusional Cowboy fan in your life, the fake hope in their eyes is gone. There's no light there anymore. There's no more, I put up with Jerry because he's fun and I like being the villain. It's done. This is a bland franchise with an unremarkable head coach that no one really knows and no one really has a feeling about. And that's not very good for a team that, what I would say, needs most inspiration and a little bit of attitude. They don't have that with Dak Prescott. They're not going to get that with Schloppenheimer. The running back room is awful, and another ugly, ugly schedule. This is a team that could lose to the Cardinals. This is a team that could lose to the Panthers, an up-and-coming bad team. Bad team. They're not above losing to any team on this schedule. Other teams, they could beat any team on their schedule. The Cowboys, complete inverse. They could flop, roll over, and just take a loss like nobody else, especially when they don't need to. Cowboys unders until they actually make a run in the playoffs.
The other reason why they had such a bad, not the only reason, the main reason why they had a bad year last year is because Dak got hurt. We talked about a lot last season, lack of available weapons. I think that they had an amazing draft. I think their offensive line gets a lot better with Tyler Booker. I think that Donovan Ezaraku is going to be a great added pass rusher for that unit. And I really think that the George Pickens addition is going to be a big boost for them as well. Random side point that I noticed because I have ADHD. Nosebleeds for the Raiders game. $566, which is insane. That is maybe that's just off the assumption that like,
For
hey,
the Cowboys Raiders
yeah,
game?
maybe they're just assuming that Cowboys fans are going to travel to Las Vegas, that they're going to be willing to spend all that money. And that's probably what the case is. Maybe a lot of people are already buying up tickets to
God,
that
that'd be
because they want to go
home
on a
field
trip.
advantage for the
Yeah.
Cowboys.
Seriously. For them to win 8 games, they have a good roster. They have a good offense. The only thing that is below average is the running back room. The receiving room improved with CD and George Pickens, but it's not a very deep unit. I will admit that. But this team in the past has done enough and has survived enough to go at least 8 wins. They might miss the playoffs this year. That's fine. 8 wins, miss the playoffs. That's totally plausible for them to happen. But you're telling me that their win total is only 7.5? They were as bad as they were mostly because of not having Dak last year.
They were limping. They were limping into that Dak injury. I
understand
that. They were in a bad spot with Dak, and they were losing silly ass games with Dak Prescott. And then when Dak was done, it was just done. And I know that teams can bounce back and find their rhythm. That's not for the NFL as much because there's so few games. You get one a week. This team doesn't start fast. They like to catch heat when the pressure's off and then make it look better at the end. It's a fail. They've been a failure from the jump, and the startup has some angel investor drop down right before the upfronts so they can get another year of runway. That's how this team has been operating. They have not been operating with any sense of momentum. I am so down on the Cowboys, and if Dak goes out and plays like great Dak Prescott all year and throws for 4,400 yards, maybe they get the over. And I look like a goose, a silly one at that. But right now, I see nothing inspiring about this Dallas Cowboys team.
Washington Commanders win total, surprisingly, 9.5. That seems disturbingly low for them to have 9.5. I'm taking the over on this. For them to win 10 ball games in 2025 is more than accomplishable. We saw what they did last year. A couple of spurts last season where they were a little up and down. You know, just your rookie quarterback catching the rookie mistakes at times. He had the one game against the Eagles where he threw a bunch of interceptions but still played phenomenally and had a bunch of huge plays in that game. I think year 2 of Jaden Daniels is going to be truly eye-opening. If I'm talking about, I wouldn't even consider it a dark horse, but like a name that isn't the usual suspects to win the MVP, Jaden Daniels is probably going to do that. They had not a offseason that blows you away where you're like, oh shit, like this is Super Bowl winning team this upcoming year. But it was a good offseason to take them a step forward. A team that is taking a step forward where there were no expectations for them to be good last year. I'm absolutely taking them to go over 9.5.
I would have been way more optimistic if some recent footage of Deebo Samuel, one of their big offseason acquisitions.
Yeah, he's fat and slow, and Terry's also not there. That's a good point. I will admit that's a good point. That he's not looking great at receiver right now.
I wish I had seen a more light-footed Deebo Samuel is how I'm going to put it. Not how did you put it, Joe?
Yeah, blocking receiver.
Yeah, okay. I believe you said fat and slow, and now you've rendered him down to a fullback out wide.
Yeah, he's going to be an inline receiver.
I think the Commanders, they go through with it. They hit the over. This team is just hitting all the right buttons. They're also following the Dan Quinn belief system, whereas if you get that dude in front of a new group and you get a little bit of buy-in, the whole team buys in. He's a great motivator, and this team has that kind of forward, upwards momentum. And I think they clear this before December. I think they have 10 wins before December. They don't play the Eagles twice, or they played the Eagles twice in their last 3 games of the year. The NFL is so good at schedule making. They don't want the Eagles playing the Giants this late in the year. They want the 2 top of the divisions playing at the end of it. But right now, I'm looking at this Commander schedule. So many winnable games. So many games that quarterback versus quarterback, they have the advantage. And as of right now, while we haven't seen film put down, that is a number 1 indicator. Second might just be defense on paper. But they have that advantage against so many teams. Seattle, Miami. They have that advantage over Detroit. They have it over Denver, Atlanta, Chicago, Minnesota. They have a better quarterback than so many other teams that they're facing. They have a better quarterback, I'd say, even than Green Bay. So they can work through it. Blind faith over, and I'm confident in it. That's what I'm going to take after this show. I'm locking it in.
Philadelphia Eagles, 11.5 wins for 2025 on Bet Online. So, I'm a little bit I'm hung up on this one because great team, best roster in the NFL. I don't think that we can really argue any other team at the current moment. Someone will end up coming up mid-season. We'll be talking about how they have a better roster than the Eagles, but they have been very well drafted. They're very deep at most positions. There's really not many roster holes unless we looked at like wide receiver 3 or their second outside corner. They're going to be so difficult to stop for how athletic and explosive they are, and especially with all the rookies that were impactful last year stepping into year 2. 11.5, though, for them to win 12 games. If I'm just talking from like a betting perspective, it's kind of high. Like that's a
big number for the NFL.
Right.
You got to have brass clangers to say my team's winning 12 games here.
That is giving me a very small margin of error from the betting perspective. If I'm giving you the betting answer, I'm taking the under or I'm not touching this. If I'm giving you the analysis indicator, I'm taking the over. I'm taking them winning 12 football games. That would be a huge season for them to go and then win 12, 13 ball games in 2025. But if they're just going to build off of the momentum of last year, they would need, in my eyes, to suffer a debilitating injury to a key star. And because they're so deep on their D-line, if you lose Jalen Carter, does that really derail you?
Yeah.
If you lose A.J. Brown, does that really derail you? If you lose Saquon, does that really he's obviously incredibly important, but does that lose you 3 football games? I don't know if I go that far to say that. So I think that they can win at least 12 next season.
I think it's fair, and I like the way that you put it, betting versus like football, because betting wise, they've got a lot of teams that they could lose to that will be close lines. The Commanders twice, Bills once. They got the Packers, they get the Buccaneers, the Chiefs, the Rams, the Broncos, all competent teams, good defense. They also get the Lions. So betting wise, under's the smart play. Football wise, these guys are evil. And they just get away with wins, and they take them. The only concern I have, I'm not going injury with it. I'm going Nick Sirianni tinderbox explosion, where all of this oddness with that dude, their head coach, has been somewhat kept close to the vest, where the players are protecting him, he's protecting the players, but we all know it's been a volatile environment in that locker room where A.J. Brown has been upset. There has been weird press conferences that have been coming out of Philly. So I'm not saying a skid, but they started off real murky last year, and then they started ripping off wins when Saquon got his flow. Right now, I think that Nick Sirianni's still problem for the Eagles.
That's kind of crazy to say after they won a Super Bowl.
Dude, look,
I've backtracked since we reacted
every year
to
that we've had Nick Sirianni starting as the head coach for this team, there has been some fundamental issue with him.
Yeah, but I don't think that you can say that that's a hurdle anymore after they just won a Super Bowl. I just don't agree with it. I don't like him personally as a coach. I can sit here and say I don't like. Sorry, let me rephrase. I don't like him personally as a human being.
Okay,
I don't like him as a dude. I think he's a dick. But I think that being a dick in his own unique way has made him a great football coach.
I think they were 2 losses away last year from him being out. It was that it was getting that close.
See, I've completely flipped on that. I think where we were wrong, we did that one segment during the year where we thought that this is a problem. He's turned into a distraction. I think that from the media perspective and the outside perspective, it has become really frustrating. Unless you're an Eagles fan, and some Eagles fans were also sick of him. They're like, I'm sick of this shit. I don't care that he got us to a Super Bowl. It doesn't mean anything. This was before they won the Super Bowl, and they had that little bit of a rough patch. But I think that we didn't really register and realize the energy in the locker room and the players rally around him being a dick. They all rally around him. They rally around him not putting up with shit. Because we see that the way that they all communicate, all the players on that team communicate so confidently that they all share that same mentality. I don't know. I don't think that Sirianni holds them back. I think that the only thing that might hold them back is if Saquon, who has had in spurts serious injuries that have completely kept him out of availability. That to me is the biggest piece, is if he plays a full season or is at least available for the second half of the year and plays most of the second half of the year, whatever circumstance, that will be the baseline for success.
They got 2 Saquon Barkley, or they got 2 halves of Saquon Barkley with their remaining running backs and A.J. Dillon and Will Shipley. You combine them, turns into Saquon Barkley.
I don't agree with that.
Power and agility.
I don't agree with that.
Oh, good counterpoint. How would you not? Shipley, small, quick, super agile. AJ Dillon,
two shit running
huge
backs.
thighs, huge quads. Come on, you combine them.
Two mediocre running backs does not get me one of the best running backs of all time. I'm not doing that.
Two brain cells gets you a show at Hack City, so I think we could be able to work with it, pal.
I don't. Okay, all right. Real great comeback,
jackass.
What?
I'm sure they don't combine to make Saquon Barkley like a nice metamorphosis.
They're not the same person. You can't put Will Shipley on AJ Dillon's shoulders and ask him to run the football.
Is that how you're thinking a metamorphosis would work? That there were two kids in trench coat?
My point is that two running backs does not solve not having the greatest running back in the NFL at the current moment. It doesn't solve that problem.
Honestly,
could you get decent games out of the two of them? Sure. You're not going to get the same impact as Saquon. It's much easier to slow down AJ Dillon and Will Shipley. You can't really slow down Saquon.
But you could still find a way with that workflow. That goofball at the top, Nick Sirianni, waiting for his lid to blow. And he's taking these big speeches in front of the team that, now you have to be able to handle the success. Hey, dude, you were the one talking trash to fans after winning regular season games in the tunnels, talking about how to handle success. You think his ego isn't going to go through the roof? Oh my God, he's such a bigger issue. He's just a bigger issue than a hypothetical Saquon injury, which he does have history with.
Big ego Nick Sirianni might be more dangerous than ever. Because then he's just going to be ballsy as hell in his decision making. I don't know, dude. I have backtracked on my thoughts on him as a head coach.
That's crazy.
Let's stay in the NFC East, though. Let's get to talking about Terry McLaurin. We already talked about this a couple weeks ago after Terry McLaurin, Washington Commanders receiver, didn't show up to OTAs. But now we have a little bit more context of what he's looking for. Is Terry McLaurin worth the massive number he is asking for is the question that we need to ask ourselves now that we kind of have context here. McLaurin is, per Albert Breer, when he was on 106.7 The Fan in Washington, could be looking for in the $30 million range per season in his new contract. His quote was, "I don't think it's in a great place right now. That's the concerning indicator. If you're Terry McLaurin, you look at it and you're saying, don't even come to me with anything that doesn't start with a 3, meaning 30 per year. I think it's fair for him to ask for something in that range just based on where the market has gone. I think they will eventually get something done." For very important added details here, Terry McLaurin is the only receiver in franchise history to have 5 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. We talked about his stats last time we did this segment, but I didn't realize that he is on track to maybe being the best receiver in Commanders history.
Yeah,
he's well on track for that. And he was second-team All-Pro last year and his second Pro Bowl.
Yeah, he's well on pace to be passing Art Monk. He is close to passing Santana Moss in the memorable moment, fan favorite wide receiver of all time. But Santana Moss had too many big moments against the Cowboys. Terry needs a couple more of those, even though he got the best over Diggs multiple times in games. Terry's worth the 30. Terry's worth whatever you can get him for, because if you try to stall this, he will get paid somewhere else and he will make an impact somewhere else. And he's a guy where he thrived in the shit. He thrived 1,000-yard seasons and he didn't have a quarterback for the first 4 of them. Are you kidding?
You can't hang him out now.
You
can't do it
you
now. Right.
After
everything, you can't just be like, no, well, we don't think you were, you weren't the main reason for our success. Bullshit.
You were the only reason. He was the only reason they were getting down the field. Give me a Yes, he is worth the 30. He's only going to get more expensive. Jaden Daniels seems to like him. And additionally, who was Jaden Daniels throwing to that wasn't Zach Ertz to win ball games? Let's recall that Cincinnati Bengals win, 4th quarter, drop it in the bucket. Who catches it? Terry Big Dick McLaurin catches it, walking in, shattering the Bengals' hearts. That's what he will do with Jaden Daniels. You know what? This makes a lot of sense. Let's just separate the peanut butter and the jelly. We'll sell them as their own sandwiches.
We'll stick a pickle in there.
Yeah,
you want everyone to go fuck themselves.
Yeah. Here's peanut butter and mayo, and then we got jelly and honey. Hey, okay, go ahead, pick them. Whatever you want. This is what you get, but you don't get peanut butter and jelly anymore.
Well, I would argue those options that you just presented actually aren't that bad. Like, it needs to be
because they're still not that bad. Like jelly and honey. That's Jaden Daniels. You still got a quarterback of the future, but it's not a PB&J.
Yeah, but we're talking about right now that the next listed man behind him is Chris Moore. Luke McCaffrey? I would argue that's a pickle with peanut butter. That sounds like shit. That sounds awful. Hey man, you want some pickles on your peanut butter and jelly? We're out of jelly. How about some pickles?
McCaffrey's TikTok fodder for them. He's the quirked up white receiver that's what he is, and I get it. You need Terry to be there. Terry has been a leader. Terry is a veteran wide receiver presence that isn't a dramatic diva wide receiver number one that shows up lunch pail. He is the receiver and the NFL player that you write about. That these old heads they yearn for this type of player. They yearn for the guy that doesn't need to be the glitzy guy out with the paparazzi. He doesn't need to be OBJ on a boat. He doesn't need to be Malik Neighbors with the diamonds dancing. It's Terry McLaurin. He comes in, he gets 1,000 yards a year, and he makes your team better. And he did it when he didn't need to. So just pay him the 30, pay him the 32, pay him 34. It's going to be worth it. He's also a very healthy receiver. He is consistently on the field. So you want to sacrifice that for somebody? Go ahead. Yeah. The return on investment needs to be monstrous if you decide not to go through with this. It needs to be something that you couldn't a Juan Soto to the Padres get back for the Nats, which they've squandered, but it has turned out to be a very big haul for them. It needs to be a massive proportion return if you don't want to keep a guy of his caliber.
Here are the two guys that I would compare him to that he should be making more money than. Because if we look at the rest of the average per year contracts, he's not better than Jamar Chase. He's not better than Justin Jefferson. He's not better than CeeDee Lamb. They're making 40, 35, 34 in that order. DK is making 33. He's statistically been like kind of on par. AJ Brown's been a lot more dominant than Terry McLaurin. Amon-Ra St. Brown's making 30. He's been more dominant. He's got a 1,500-yard season very recently. But T. Higgins is making 28-7, and he has two 1,000-yard years. The last two seasons, he hasn't played more than 12 games, and he had 656 and then 911 yards. So not great stats for T. Higgins. We know that he's a great player, but Terry McLaurin has outperformed him. He deserves more than him. Brandon Ayuk, who's making 30, has an 1,000-yard season in 2022, a 1,300-yard season in 2023, and then only played 7 games in 2024 because he suffered a serious injury. He doesn't have massive production. He has 2 really good years that earned him the big contract that he just got. Terry McLaurin has been the epitome of consistency. But here's my main take with all this. You just went and brought in Deebo Samuel. Deebo, like, this would be absurd if they traded Terry McLaurin or if they just said, no, we're not going to give it to you. Mm-hmm. And then Terry walks and then you still have just Deebo. Deebo, and this was the whole talking point that we had, does not work if he is the only wide receiver. If he is wide receiver 1.
Not anymore.
They just tried. The 49ers this last year, they tried as hard as they could at the end of the season to make that work. He is a gadget guy that works when he is able to create for himself when attention is diverted elsewhere. That was why Deebo was so good, because he was been able to be deployed so creatively. But when he was matched up against number 1 corners, he struggled. He was ass. He was not good. So you're just recreating that same bad circumstance that happened this past year for the 49ers. Why would you do that? Why would you bring in Deebo if you weren't going to respect Terry McLaurin and you knew that this was coming up?
He also wasn't wearing 19 last year, which is a fatal flaw. Deebo needs to be in a double-digit number. Please, dear God.
44.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's inspired.
It's going to be the very first outside F.
I want Deebo to own it and go with the big 88. Just let me be a big hardy 88.
What about 52?
50. I don't know if you're allowed to wear 52 out wide, Joe.
38.
Oh, 38. That could be fun.
38. That's 19 times 2.
38 could be fun.
He's double as big.
That's
now.
38 times 1.
Dumbass.
Stupid. I'm sorry.
Bad joke, and you could have unhooked your mic by slapping it. Fresh professionalism.
God.
All
awful.
Right, let's talk about this last headline that caught my attention that I was very intrigued
by. This is a big one.
I always love when we get to June And then there's just like a random athletic article. It was like, yeah, this guy said this guy sucks.
Love it.
It's just really random. Like, yeah, he said he doesn't want him anywhere near his team. It's like, oh, and it's the most benign, non-controversial player. It's not a guy who's got off the field issues. It's not a guy who's outspoken. It's like always the quietest, best. What are the best stories that you hear?
Sure.
This circumstance, apparently, Tom Brady did not want Sam Darnold to be the Raiders quarterback. Now, they were looking. They ended up going with Geno Smith. He says no to Darnold. Is this a sign, the better question we need to ask, of Brady meddling already in roster making decisions? Now, what I'm referencing, per The Athletic, Brady was not in favor of going after Darnold, which would explain why they did not make a serious effort to land him. Spytech had pointed out when they brought in Geno, he referenced the feedback that Tom Brady gave him on his thoughts on him as a player. So very clearly, they turned to Tom as the quarterback consultant in this circumstance. I don't mind that, but I feel like time over time, whenever there's ownership meddling in decision-making, does it always work? Why didn't you just make Tom the general manager if you were going to do this?
You don't want to do all that. He wants to pick his quarterback, and that's what he wants to do. That's what he should do. And that's all I'd want Tom Brady to do in my organization. I don't need him finding the best space eater that we can get in the 4th round. I don't need that. I need him evaluating which quarterbacks are frauds or not. And that's what I think it all came down to with Brady. And I'm not saying this means, in my opinion, Geno Smith is not fraudulent or that Brady doesn't think he's not fraudulent. But I think we can work to the conclusion that he thought Geno Smith less fraudulent than Sam Darnold off of the Vikings. I think if you drop Tom Brady on the Vikings ownership group, I would wager he'd want to keep Darnold. But since after moving, new situation, I don't want to bring Sam Darnold here. The track record would be bad, and the Raiders still aren't good. So I want to keep as much nice chemistry as I can. Geno and Pete, that works. That's at least a stepping stone, foundationally.
Here's my problem with not your comment specifically, but just this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of agree with opposite of my thoughts. You disagree with where I stand.
I agree opposite.
Yes. That's the wordsmith over here. Real motherfucking wordsmith over here. I was trying not to curse and I ended up going in the opposite direction.
Holy hell.
This was one of the rumors at the beginning of free agency that the Raiders wanted Matthew Stafford. That was one of the things that was brought up. They were going to try and figure it out. And I believe I'm very heavily paraphrasing. I believe that a lot of people indicated that there was probably some sort of tampering with that Matthew Stafford situation. If they ended up getting Matthew Stafford, and this story was about how they didn't want Sam Darnold and they ended up with Stafford, completely different conversation. But how the hell are we going to do oh man, I'm not that guy. No, not that guy. Not that guy who's had a better overall just season. Sam Darnold's season is better than any of Geno Smith's best seasons. Now he's had a little bit longer period of sustained success, but it's only been 3 good years?
2.5 years in Seattle.
2.5 good years as a starter. I'm not talking down on Geno and saying Geno is not
the deep ball. The deep ball accuracy from Geno.
I'm not saying that he's not a good starter, but I'm perplexed by basically being so out on a player who's almost identical to what you just brought in. Geno is quite literally exactly what just happened with Sam Darnold. Guy who was drafted early with high expectations. He was a second-round pick, high expectations that he could do great things, never panned out, never worked, and then finally, 3rd, 4th trip around this, around the league and with a different team, it finally works out. His traits work, the experience, it all catches, it all works. And he's only been successful in one place as a starter, so we don't even know if he on the Raiders is going to work. Darnold's the same shit. He was first-round pick who didn't work, who bounced around. The big difference between the two of them, Darnold had a better season overall, has had a much better season than Geno's best, and he's freaking younger.
Yeah.
I don't get how you could be so out on Sam Darnold and be like, oh, Geno? Yes, that's what we need.
Well, first of all, Geno was trendy because Geno was a guy that was forgotten about, and he was overdrafted, and we got to see some terrible ball from Geno Smith, and because he was on tragic teams. really, truly tragic teams. And when we got to see him on a mediocre team and he played above mediocre level quarterback, everyone started getting excited for Geno Smith.
Glazing, is that what you're going for?
I had a much more vile term, and I'm just going to keep that one in the pocket. Didn't need to throw that in that colorful language. Geno Smith became trendy. And you know why I know he became trendy? Because people started talking about his spiral. They started talking about, they started calling him one of the best throwers of the football. Not a passer, a thrower. That's how you know you got some dummies talking about your guy that don't know what the hell they're talking about. Because Geno Smith made some terrible errors last year, like rookie mistakes, bad shit on film. He had some good throws. He could throw a seam pretty much as good as a lot of other people in the league. But the mistakes that Geno hits you with, you cannot recover from them in a game. They are game-losing mistakes, and Darnold will do the same thing. He will. Two sides of the same coin. So Brady, I don't think, is trying to throw shade, but it's really interesting that he's coming out and saying, I didn't even think about it from this perspective, that he has Sam Darnold on his team. I didn't even think about it like that. I thought this was more of a Brady trashing Derek Carr or Fitzpatrick and that. But no, I don't know if he's trying to cope and say we have the better Sam Darnold on our team.
The only thing that would make sense for this, Geno's much older. Realistically, and we have already talked about this, you got like a 3-year window with Geno, which means he's your starter. And in those 3 years, you can go and find your next quarterback and you can be patient about setting him into the mix. If you go with Sam Darnold, that doesn't work. You needed to offer him a multi-year deal and you needed some form of long-term commitment to him. So maybe the belief is and the hope that this upcoming year or the next 2 years, they can draft somebody. I don't know how they're going to accomplish that.
Yeah.
If they think that they can be competitive in the playoff mix or like on the verge, if they're not picking in the top 5, they're not really going to get the guy that they want. There's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of steps that go into making that come to fruition. But all I can think about of like maybe the long-term, long play roster building approach of, hey, we just need a 3-year guy. And in those 3 years, we're going to hope that we find somebody. And if we do find somebody, then we can feel better about our future because we've got a reliable sitting starter that at the very least will keep us hovering around 500.
Do you know how irritated Tom Brady's going to be if the Raiders are awful and they're like 1-3 to start the year and Seattle is 3-1 and Darnold is just playing good enough, winning a couple lucky games and Geno looks awful? You know how irritated that's going to make him. I hope he actually turns into a tyrannical owner. I really hope he does that. Starts throwing money around, starts throwing players around.
Gets leaner and leaner.
Yeah. He just becomes a skeleton watching over this team angrily because no one can do it like he can do it. It might be a bit of a trap for him to think that he could get into the NFL ownership game with the level of competitiveness and I think the lack of patience that he has. I don't picture Tom Brady as being a let it play out and we'll see type of guy. I think it's I know what I need and these guys that you have for me aren't filling those needs for me.
I was curious. I was thinking in my head, did they draft the quarterback this year? And you know what? They do have the quarterback of their future on the roster.
Oh, who's that, Joe?
It's Cam Miller.
Oh, wow.
I completely forgot.
He's
and that was
tight end. They're going to make a tight end.
He's not that big. Cam Miller's not that big.
Dude, what is he, like 6'3"?
Let me look that up.
I thought he was a big hoss.
The whole thing with Cam Miller. No, he's
no, they have Miller and Malott there. That's what I was trying to. That's the
Malot's
quarterback
also
of the
not
future,
a big.
man.
Malot's not a big hoss either.
Yeah, I'm putting him at running back.
I'm sure they're going to get him playing slot.
Okay, go ahead, run me down. I wanted a quarterback to play running back. Run me down, everyone.
Cam Miller's 6'1", 210.
Oh, who am I thinking of? I'm thinking of the other North Dakota State quarterback that I would turn into a tight end.
Big Moose. I forget. I'm forgetting on.
What is his name? Stone Lockhart. Some Moose name.
Yeah, I forget what his. I do remember that. No, but Cam Miller. That was the other. Tom Brady blessing pick. Like he really wanted the Raiders to take Cam Miller when they did. So hey, maybe there is something there with Cam Miller that he ends up.
I like Cam Miller. I'm not going to run down Cam Miller, but I will say. FCS quarterback rolling into the league with a little not as many NFL players playing in the FCS due to transfer portal stuff. It's a bit of a leap, Mr. Miller. It's going to be a little bit different.
Hey man, put some respect on him. Do we have any hackback questions before we jump to?
We were let down, Joseph. We were let
Oh.
down.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yes, of course. Hackback questions can always be accepted at Hack City Pod on Twitter. You know what? Well, we got responses.
We did get responses. Are they not readable?
You know what? They're both readable, actually. They're both readable. So if we want to get to the hack bag, we can do it.
Are you certain that they're readable?
No, I'll answer one of them. I don't think there's one
Wait.
that you can answer.
Hold on. Let me just because
There's a food question and a porn question. I figure that you're probably not going to give up any of your gooning habits, but I can weigh in on both.
These guys are idiots. I swear to God.
No.
Yeah, let's get to the questions.
The mail never stops.
This is the Hack Bag. Hit us on Twitter for questions or call at 201-834-4308.
201-834-4308. Call in, leave us a voicemail. We have not had a voicemail in a minute. First question from Chester. Do the British have the worst food?
It's bad.
I haven't been there. Here's what I will say. I don't want to hear any dummy. I'm sure people from Ireland and England would pull the complaints of, they're different food. That's Australia.
I liked it.
Hey. What are you talking about? It's the same shit. It's all the same shit. I was pleasantly surprised when I was in Ireland, the food.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had some. When you're in Dublin, by the way, go to Hawksmoor Steakhouse. One of the best ribeyes I've ever had.
I wouldn't even know how to spell that.
How
it's spelled.
Hawksmoor.
Okay, gotcha.
It's in Dublin. You'll be able to find it really easily. You should go there. One of the best steaks I've had. It's tremendous. Probably like top 15. I wouldn't put it in like the top 5 bucket. Number 1 still tracks with Lupa that we went to in the city.
Yeah,
amazing steak. We need to go back there, by the way.
I like a steak. Here's the thing: you also could just play it safe with a steak in other countries. You could just play it. Everyone knows how to grill a steak. The British,
it's all bar food, by the way. I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah,
it's all freaking bar food. If you're willing to go to a bar or a pub or a dive bar and order a burger and enjoy it, it's not bad food.
Fish and chips is fine. It's fine. It's good.
Have you been to England?
No, I'll get there. I'm not dying to get there. I'm in no rush. But the food there is really unfortunate. It all surrounds the P. Not PEA is what a lot of the food in England.
Yeah,
for some reason, mushy peas are really.
Can I get
involved.
a pie and some mushy peas?
Meat pie, some mash, and the peas.
I'll get pie.
Double pay, but you need the vinegar. I'm good, dude.
It does look like the biggest pile of slop.
It's slop.
I will admit.
And I am
it's dog food.
I love
like
slop.
Dog food.
I will make Anders slop, and it'll be a big pot of awfulness.
Maybe because we're too. I mean, we're just too big dumb oafs in different regards. Maybe we do need to go there and try it. Maybe it would knock our socks off because we just like eating a pile of mush.
It won't. It's just not inspired, and it's fine. It's what they eat and running down what other cultures and countries eat. It's typically met with the blowtorch if you try to do that. Like if I were going to go for typical American chain or typical American ordering foods like Thai, Chinese, Indian, pizza, whatever, then Indian is at the bottom for me. But you can't I don't think I've ever had. I think Indian traveling food also is important that you like the cuisine that you're going to. Like not going to India is partially because I'm not that big on roti canai, and I don't really like the curry as much. But Italy, yeah, I'll be balls deep in some pasta, and I will be enjoying the wine where it just works better. British, their food scene is really bad.
I think an easy indicator. I don't think I've been to a single restaurant in my 27 years on this planet, and I've seen somewhere in the U.S. serving mushy peas or those stupid meat pies that they do at those restaurants. I've never seen. There are iterations, Americanized iterations of so many different cuisines across the world. All the food from Africa, food from all the countries in Asia. We can get as specific as we need to specific regions of Asia. Most of Europe, you're not finding mushy peas anywhere.
No. We can go. We could get on a bike and find a Cantonese spot in 10 minutes. But they're not going to be mushy peas because no one wants them.
Nope.
And the meat pies, there's something to be said about it. You go into England and they're all making like home cooked meal, like a shepherd's pie and all that stuff. Like it all feels home cooked. And I think that's how they like it, and that it's not spectacular. And that for the most part, it's like an old lady and a fat old geezer in the back whipping up the meat pies. I don't need it though.
Rack's question before we close out: is Pornhub still relevant, or is there something the younger generation is? Well, OnlyFans is the answer to that question.
Yeah, OnlyFans.
Twitter is pretty reliable. Reddit
porn is skyrocketing. Twitter porn. Twitter porn has actually lost all of its allure since Elon and the OnlyFans bots and everyone started flooding in. Like
that's fair.
You can't see
what.
You can't just be scrolling and see a shake that ass thread and think you're going to just see people on Twitter shaking ass. It's OnlyFans models and it's bots, and it doesn't feel as authentic as it used to because it doesn't feel like a Twitter connection. Twitter used to be like, oh, well, that person's in Ohio shaking ass. And, oh, you're from San Jose shaking ass? And, oh, there's a bunch in Florida shaking ass. And now it's all like it's almost aggregators and it's bots and it's link in bio.
No one's doing it for the love of the game.
No one loves the game anymore.
No one's doing it for the love of the game.
They all just like they just sold out.
Reddit is great. There's a lot of link in bio on Reddit, but like it's a lot more.
Reddit is like super.
If you go to the right subreddit,
you get real specific, and then yes. But I think Jesus, this is a brain rotted conversation. They used to buy magazines for this just to see a still image. We're breaking down the SEO.
I might need to take a break.
I think I might ramp it up.
What does that even mean?
Oh,
how do you ramp it up?
I'll ramp it up. I'll start venturing out of my room.
So you're gonna go jerk off in public? Is what you're saying?
No.
Maybe
in the kitchen. Maybe I'll.
You better not do it in the kitchen.
Who says I haven't?
I'm never not here.
You were not here for a week?
But see, I would actually find it moderately acceptable if you had a girl over and you fucked her in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Jesus.
If you
language.
Did that, if you did that and you had sex with a girl in here that you were seeing, I'd be moderately impressed because it's awfully tight in here.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be. I'd be grossed out.
Hey, you want to watch a movie on this couch? Yeah, we could peep it through all the lights and equipment.
If you came in here and cranked hog just to prove a point, I would be really upset. I'd be like, I would demand that you pay me something to clean the wherever you.
Why would it not be cleaned up? You think I would just leave?
I'm not saying that if your ass is out in any part of this kitchen and it's like you'd have to be leaned up against something.
You know what was weird? Last night after my golf shower, I didn't bring, for some reason, I just didn't bring my towel with me.
So you're walking
and
around
I just walked in, got a glass of water butt naked and walked back to my, and I don't know why I did. Like, genuinely, I'm like in my room. I look down, like, well, that's weird.
You're naked?
I'm naked. I'm glad Joe was in his room.
I'm doing that all day during the day when you're not here.
Oh, when I'm working, you're sitting around here, Copacabana.
No. Like if I'm coming back from, I work out in the middle of the day, so if I'm coming back from working out, I'm bouncing around like, I need to get some water before I get in the shower.
Yeah, why not?
I used to do that all the time in my old apartment.
How you operated in your apartments and stuff is so funny to me because I don't care. I'm in my room. I'm going to be naked in my room and my windows are going to be open. That's what in college you used to say, yeah, I never put my blinds down once. And you had a straight shot into your window.
No, but that's not, that is a very violent mischaracterization.
That is not a mischaracterization.
My room was incredibly long and wide. In order for me to have been naked in front of that I would have had to have been walking straight up to and standing over the window.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't doing that.
Oh, I thought you might have been.
You're an asshole.
That's
a crazy thing to say.
You said I'm naked in the middle of the day here in this apartment.
Because my room
with your robe on, your Hugh Hefner robe
I didn't
on,
have a
and your Hugh Hefner old man balls hanging down.
My room in college, first of all, the windows were the highest amongst all of the buildings.
Which one are you talking about? Hillside?
I'm not talking about Hillside. I'm talking about, Hillside also I had the highest room in the entire campus, basically on the 5th floor of Hillside. But the apartment that we lived in for 2 years.
Oh, I was talking about Hillside.
Same shit in Hillside. I'd have to. There was a 2-foot separation of a shelf and like ventilation between the window and where the furthest I could stand. I'd have to have climbed up and pressed my balls up against the window in order for anyone to have seen me naked.
Sure. Why are you yelling at me about this?
Because you made a ridiculous claim that I was going around. That is an insane thing to say.
Why am I getting yelled at?
Because
you have pride in your body.
No. You blindly accused me of something.
I didn't blindly accuse you of anything.
Go back and listen to what you just said.
I'll take a listen. I'll go back through the tapes.
Asshole.
You think, oh, I'm sorry. I thought.
At Joe DeLeone, at Sanderson Radio, at Hack City Pod. We'll talk to you guys later.